if everything you thought you knew about the Vikings was a carefully crafted lie written by their terrified victims? For centuries, history painted these Norse seafarers as bloodthirsty savages who ravaged Europe with unmatched brutality. But archaeological discoveries in the last decade have shattered this narrative, revealing a stunning paradox that challenges our understanding of one of history's most misunderstood civilizations. Picture this: June 8, 793, the monastery at Lindisfarne on England's northeastern coast. Monks going about their morning prayers suddenly hear the sound of wooden hoes scraping against sand. Viking longships emerge from the morning mist, and within hours, the holy sanctuary becomes a scene of devastation. Treasures plundered, sacred relics desecrated, monks slaughtered or dragged away as slaves. The scholar Alcuin, watching from Charlemagne's court, wrote in horror, "Never before has such terror appeared in Britain." This single event would define the Viking reputation for the next 12 centuries. But here's what they didn't tell you in history class. That same year, while Lindisfarne burned, Viking merchants were peacefully trading furs, amber, and walrus ivory in Constantinople, exchanging goods with Byzantine merchants who considered them valuable business partners. Archaeological evidence from the trading center of Hidibi reveals carnelian from India, silk from China, and wine barrels from the Rhineland not plundered, but purchased. These weren't just raiders. They were running one of the most sophisticated trade networks the medieval world had ever seen. The trading empire hidden in plain sight. Yale historian Anders Winroth drops a bombshell that most people never hear. The Vikings were violent, but no more than anyone else at the time. Compared to Charlemagne's armies, the Vikings were amateurs. Let that sink in. The same Christian rulers who condemned Viking brutality were simultaneously conducting wholesale massacres across Europe, yet history remembers only the Viking raids. The archaeological record tells a radically different story than medieval monks did. At Hidibi, one of Scandinavia's premier trading towns, excavations have unearthed small ceramic bottles of mercury, brass ingots, foreign jewelry made from rock crystal, glass from distant lands, counterfeit Arab coins suggesting not just trade but sophisticated economic fraud, and reindeer antlers from Norway exchanged for pottery from the Mediterranean. The Vikings established a bullion economy based on weighed silver and gold, using precise scales and standardized weights that rival any European monetary system of the era. Their trade routes were staggering in scope. The Osterweger, or Eastern Route, stretched from Scandinavia across the Baltic Sea through Russia to Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire. The Westerweger, or Western Route, reached the British Isles, Ireland, and incredibly, North America 5 centuries before Columbus. These weren't random raids with ships full of warriors. These were carefully planned commercial expeditions covering over 8,000 kilometers, connecting North America to Asia in a medieval globalization that historians conveniently forget. The trading centers they founded still exist today. Dublin, Ireland's capital, founded by Vikings as a trade hub. Novgorod and Kyiv in Russia, Viking trading posts that became major cities. York in England, known as Jorvik under Viking control. Archaeological excavations reveal a thriving multicultural trading town where Norse and Anglo-Saxon craftsmen work side by side, producing goods for international markets. But here's where the story gets uncomfortable and where the paradox truly emerges. The Vikings' two largest trading commodities were furs and slaves. Let me repeat that: slaves. Not a dirty secret hidden from history, but openly documented in Arab, Byzantine, and European sources. Iron slave fetters recovered from Hidibi as harbor tell a chilling story. Vikings captured people during raids and sold them to Arab caliphates through Mediterranean ports like Venice and Marseille. So which were they, traders or terrorists? The answer is both, and that's what makes the Viking Age so disturbing and fascinating. They weren't two separate groups, peaceful merchants and violent raiders. They were the same people, engaging in both activities simultaneously, sometimes in the same voyage. A Viking ship might dock at Constantinople to trade amber and furs in the morning, then attack a coastal monastery in the evening. Archaeological evidence from the Curedale Hoard in England reveals over 8,600 items silver coins from multiple empires, hack silver from melted jewelry, and trade goods from across the known world, all buried together, representing both legitimate commerce and violent plunder. The Spillins hoard on Gotland, weighing 67 kilograms of silver, tells a similar story of wealth acquired through a complex mix of trade, tribute, and terror. The three phases of Viking expansion. Historians now recognize three distinct phases of Viking activity, but the narrative is far more nuanced than they came, they raided, they left. The first phase, from 790 to 840, involves small seasonal coastal raids targeting monasteries and trading centers, places with portable wealth and weak defenses. These weren't random acts of violence. They were calculated economic strikes against the medieval world's unguarded ATMs. But here's what changes everything. The Vikings often didn't leave. Contrary to popular belief, many Viking raiders established permanent settlements in the territories they initially attacked. They integrated into local populations, intermarried, adopted Christianity when it suited their interests, and transformed from foreign invaders into local rulers. The Norman conquest of England in 1066. Those Normans were Vikings who'd settled in France just a few generations earlier. The National Museum of Denmark reveals something shocking. Vikings didn't just raid, they negotiated. In 873, Danish King Sigfrid sent emissaries to meet with King Louis the German at Worms to establish a formal peace treaty, securing safe passage for merchants between Danish and Saxon territories. These were diplomatic agreements between recognized kingdoms, not anarchic pirate bands terrorizing innocent civilians. The historical record also shows Vikings regularly worked under contracts as mercenaries, protecting trade routes and serving as bodyguards for Byzantine emperors. The famous Varangian Guard, elite warriors protecting Constantinople's rulers, were Vikings hired through legitimate diplomatic channels. They were simultaneously Europe's most feared raiders and its most trusted security contractors, contradiction that reveals the complexity historians often ignore. The written history problem. Here's the critical question. Why do we remember Vikings primarily as raiders and not as traders? The answer is simple and disturbing. The only people writing history during the Viking Age were Christian monks, and monks don't write favorable reviews of the people who burned down their monasteries. Every major written source about Vikings comes from their victims, people who had every reason to exaggerate Viking brutality and ignore their economic contributions. As Anders Winroth notes, we see the attack through the eyes of the victims, who spread the word that the Vikings were bloody and violent. But the archaeological evidence, thousands of trade goods, diplomatic correspondence, peaceful settlements, intermarriage records, tells a story of cultural exchange that medieval chroniclers deliberately omitted. The Vikings weren't heroes or villains. They were economic opportunists operating in a brutal medieval world where the line between commerce and conquest was almost non-existent. They traded when trade was profitable, raided when raiding was easier, enslaved when slaves were valuable, and negotiated when diplomacy served their interests. Modern excavations continue revealing Viking sophistication, advanced metallurgy, long-distance navigation using sun compasses and star charts, urban planning in their trading towns, and economic systems that helped rebuild European commerce after Rome's collapse. They weren't primitive barbarians stumbling through history with axes and bad hygiene. They were calculating business people with ships, swords, and a flexible moral compass perfectly calibrated to medieval realities. So were the Vikings traders or terrorists? Perhaps the real question is why we insist on separating those categories when the Vikings themselves never did. Maybe the uncomfortable truth is that throughout human history, trade and violence have always been intimate partners, and the Vikings were simply more honest about that relationship than the civilizations that condemned them while engaging in the exact same behaviors under different names.